You give and you give and you give. But take a step back. Look at the exchange. Is it really an exchange? Or is it just you pouring yourself out while they stand there with open hands, never offering anything in return? Care is not a performance. It's not the occasional kind word when it suits them. It's not the fleeting affection when they need something. True care flows both ways. It is felt, it is shown, it is lived. If they only show up when they need something, if their presence is conditional upon what you can offer, then the truth is simple. They never really cared. The people who truly care don't just take. They notice. They listen. They ask, "Are you okay?" And they mean it. They don't just wait for their turn to speak. They hear you. They see you. Not just when it benefits them, not just when it's convenient, but always. But you've seen the other kind, haven't you? The ones who vanish the moment you need them. The ones who drain you using your kindness like an endless well, never once thinking to give anything back. They expect you to be there, to understand, to forgive. Over and over again. And you do, because you believe in people. You believe that if you love them enough, they'll love you back. But that's not how it works, is it? Love, care, respect, these are not things you should have to earn. They should be given freely, just as you have given them. But there are people who will never understand that because they were never there for you to begin with. They were there for themselves. And you were just another stop on their road to nowhere. They will leave you exhausted. You'll find yourself questioning whether you're asking for too much. You'll lower your standards, thinking maybe this is just how people are. You'll convince yourself that if you just keep giving, if you just keep proving your worth, one day they'll see you, one day they'll appreciate you, but that day never comes. Because care isn't something you should have to beg for. It isn't something that should feel like a transaction. It is given without expectation, without calculation, without a running tally of who did what. True care is reciprocal. It moves in both directions. It lifts, it nurtures, it supports. But when it doesn't, when you feel yourself always giving, always hoping, always waiting, what then? Then it's time to accept the truth. Some people will take everything you have to give and still ask for more. And no matter how much you give, it will never be enough for them, because they never truly cared. They only cared about what they could get. And that is not love. That is not friendship. That is not care. That is a void. And you were never meant to fill it. But it happens again and again. And before you know it, their words have woven themselves into your thoughts, creeping into the quiet moments when no one is watching. You second-guess yourself. You hesitate. You replay conversations in your head, wondering if you overreacted, if you misunderstood, if you were wrong. That's the trick. That's how subtle manipulation works. It's never loud, never obvious. It seeps into your mind like a slow-moving poison, until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back at you. They've chipped away at your confidence, at your sense of self. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. They make you feel like a burden, like you ask for too much, like your needs are an inconvenience. You start apologizing for things you shouldn't be sorry for. You shrink yourself down, make yourself smaller, easier to handle, easier to keep around. You stop asking for the things you deserve, because somewhere along the way they convinced you that you weren't worth them. But here's the truth. The problem isn't you. It never was. People who truly care about you won't make you feel like you're too much. They won't belittle your feelings or dismiss your pain. They won't twist your words to make themselves the victim. But manipulators? They thrive on your doubt. They want you unsteady, unsure of yourself. Because the more you question your own worth, the easier you are to control. So they rewrite the narrative. If you call them out, you're too emotional. If you express hurt, you're overreacting. If you stand up for yourself, you're being difficult. It's always you, never them. They shift the blame so smoothly that you start to believe it. And that's when they have you. That's when they know they can do it again. And they will. Unless you see it for what it is. Manipulation doesn't always come with a raised voice or a clenched fist. Sometimes it comes in the form of a sigh, a disappointed look, a single word said just the right way. It's quiet, insidious. It doesn't break you all at once. It wears you down over time. But listen to me when I tell you this. You are not the problem. You are not too much. You are not unworthy. The problem is the person who makes you feel that way. And the moment you recognize that, the moment you stop explaining away their behavior and start seeing it for what it is, you take back your power. Because their greatest weapon was never their words. It was your belief in them. They say they'll be there at 8. They show up at 9. No call, no explanation, just a casual excuse thrown your way, as if your time means nothing. Or maybe they cancel last minute, again expecting you to understand. And you do, because you always do. At first you let it slide. Everyone gets busy, everyone forgets. But then it becomes a pattern. A meeting cut short because something more important came up. A conversation interrupted by a phone they can't stop staring at. A promise to see you soon that never actually happens. And, little by little, you start to feel it. That sinking realization that your time is not something they value. And if they don't respect your time, they don't respect you. Time is the one thing you can never get back. You can earn more money, you can replace lost things, but the hours, the moments, the pieces of your life you give to someone, once they're gone, they're gone. And when someone wastes them, when they treat them as disposable, what they're really telling you is that you are disposable. It's in the way they make you wait, the way they expect you to adjust, to accommodate, to rearrange your life to fit into theirs, the way they assume you'll always be there, no matter how many times they leave you hanging. They don't see the disrespect, because to them, your time isn't valuable. They only value their own. Think about it, when someone truly cares, they show up. They don't make excuses. They don't leave you wondering if they'll follow through. They understand that your time is a gift, and they treat it as such. They are present, not just physically, but fully. But those who don't care, they take your time for granted. They assume it will always be there, just like you. And if you let them, they will keep taking. Because that's what people do when they don't respect you. They test the limits of how much you will tolerate. And so you wait for them to see you, for them to acknowledge how much they've wasted, how much they've taken. But they won't. Because if they cared, they never would have treated you this way in the first place. So the question isn't why they don't respect your time. The question is why you continue to give it to them. Because at some point it's not just about them anymore. It's about you. About how much longer you're willing to sit in the waiting room of someone else's life, hoping they'll finally decide you're worth their time. But the truth is, you were worth it all along. They were just too selfish to see it, and that is not your burden to carry. They hurt you. Maybe it was their words, sharp and cutting, spoken without care. Maybe it was their actions, careless, selfish, designed to take but never give. And when you bring it up, when you tell them how they made you feel, what do? They deflect, they minimize, they twist the story until you're the one who feels guilty for even mentioning it. You're overreacting. I didn't mean it that way. You're too sensitive. And just like that, the conversation shifts. You came looking for accountability, but all you find is a wall. That's how it works. That's how they keep doing what they do. Because if they never take responsibility, then, in their mind, they've done nothing wrong. And if they've done nothing wrong, why would they ever stop? They will do it again. They will say something cruel and call it a joke. They will betray your trust and call it a mistake. They will hurt you, and when you finally gather the courage to call them out, they will turn the tables, make you question yourself, make you wonder if you're the problem. But you are not the problem. The problem is a person who refuses to acknowledge the damage they cause. The problem is someone who steps on your heart and expects you to clean up the mess. Because without accountability, there is no change, there is no growth, there is only repetition, an endless cycle where they hurt, deny, manipulate, and repeat. Watch closely, see how they react when they're confronted. Do they listen? Do they reflect? Do they acknowledge the pain they've caused? Or do they run? Do they lash out? Do they turn themselves into the victim, making you feel like the villain for even daring to ask for basic respect? People who truly care will own their mistakes. They won't get defensive. They won't shift the blame. They won't gaslight you into thinking you imagined it. They will say, "I hurt you and I'm sorry. How can I make it right?" They will change, not just in words, but in actions. But those who refuse to take accountability, they are telling you exactly who they are. And if you stay, if you keep making excuses for them, if you keep hoping that this time will be different, you will only find yourself trapped in the same story over and over again. So ask yourself, how many times have they hurt you? How many times have you confronted them? And how many times have they actually changed? Because if the answer is never, then you already know the truth. They will keep hurting you because they don't believe they're doing anything wrong. And as long as you allow it, they will never have a reason to stop. You know the pattern by now, the message that comes out of nowhere, the sudden warmth in their voice, the interest in your life that wasn't there before. At first it feels good, like maybe they finally see you, finally care, but then, just as quickly as they appear, they ask for something. A favor, a handout, your time, your energy, your presence. And once they get it, they vanish. No explanation, no gratitude, just silence, until the next time they need something. At first you don't want to believe it. You tell yourself there's a reason, an excuse. They're busy, they're struggling, they have a lot on their plate. But deep down, you know the truth. If they cared about you, about who you are beyond what you can offer, they wouldn't only show up when they needed something. They'd be there in between, in the quiet moments when there was nothing to gain. But they aren't, and they never have been. Think about it. When was the last time they reached out just to ask how you were? When was the last time they offered something without expectation? When was the last time they stayed, truly stayed, when there was nothing in it for them? The answer stings, doesn't it? Because this is what they do. They collect people the way a traveler collects souvenirs. Useful, temporary, meant to be discarded when no longer needed. They have no interest in your struggles, no concern for your well-being. They only remember you when they need a place to lean, a problem solved, an empty space in their life filled. And you? You always answer, because you care, because you want to believe that this time, maybe, they mean it. But they don't. Because people who truly care don't come and go like the tide. They don't treat your kindness as a convenience. They don't disappear the moment they get what they want, only to reappear when they need something else. The hardest lesson you'll ever learn is that some people only value you for what you can give, not for who you are. And when you finally stop giving, when you finally say no, you'll see how quickly their affection turns to indifference, how fast their warmth fades into cold distance. And that is your answer. They were never really there for you, only for themselves. You share good news, expecting a smile, a word of encouragement, something, anything that tells you they're happy for you. But instead you get silence, a forced nod, a half-hearted, "Oh, that's nice." And then almost immediately they change the subject. Or worse, they find a way to downplay it. Well, anyone could have done that. It's not that big of a deal. You got lucky. And just like that, the moment is gone. Real friends don't do that. Real friends don't shrink when you grow. They don't feel threatened by your success. And they don't need to make themselves feel bigger by making you feel smaller. When you win, they celebrate. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Because your happiness brings them joy, not resentment. But then there are the others. The ones who smile through gritted teeth. The ones who act supportive, but there's something off. Something in their voice, in their eyes, in the way they suddenly become distant. The ones who only seemed close to you when you were struggling, when they had the upper hand. Because that's what it was about, wasn't it? Power. They liked you better when you were beneath them, when they could comfort you, advise you, pretend to be the stronger one. But now that you've risen, now that you've stepped into something greater, they can't stand it. So they minimize it. They find ways to make it seem smaller, less important. They remind you of your past failures. They tell you not to get ahead of yourself. They make sure to let you know that they've done more, seen more, achieved more. Anything to remind you that in their mind they're still above you. But that's not friendship. That's competition disguised as companionship. Pay attention to the ones who clap when you win, the ones whose excitement is real, whose pride in you is genuine. They don't just tolerate your success, they embrace it. They don't make it about themselves, and they don't feel the need to remind you of their own achievements in the moment. That belongs to you. But those who minimize, those who dismiss, those who grow distant the moment you rise, they were never truly on your side. They just wanted you to stay small enough to make them comfortable. And now that you're not, now you see them for what they really are. They sigh. They drop their shoulders just enough for you to notice. Their voice softens, laced with disappointment. "I guess I just thought you cared more." You feel it immediately, the weight, the pressure. You were firm in your decision just moments ago, but now you hesitate. Because suddenly, it's not about what's right for you. It's about how they feel. That's how it starts. Guilt tripping isn't about concern, and it isn't about love. It's about control. It's about making you second-guess yourself, making you feel like a bad person for having boundaries, for saying no, for prioritizing your own well-being. And the worst part? It works. Because you care. Because you don't want to hurt them. because you don't want to be seen as selfish, ungrateful, uncaring. So you give in. You do what they want, not because it's right, but because you don't want to carry the guilt they've placed on your shoulders. And they know it. That's why they do it. It's never direct, never something you can point to and say, this is manipulation. No, it's subtle. It's the way they frame things. After everything I've done for you, I guess I just don't matter to you anymore. I didn't think you were that kind of person. They make you feel like you owe them, like your choices are a reflection of your character, like their pain, real or exaggerated, is somehow your responsibility. But it isn't. You do not owe anyone control over your life. You are not a bad person for making decisions that protect your peace. And anyone who truly cares about you would never need to make you feel guilty just to get their way. Think about it. If their concern was genuine, they would express it openly, without strings attached. They would communicate, not manipulate. They would respect your choices, even if they didn't like them. A guilt tripper? They don't respect your choices. They see your kindness as a weakness to be exploited, your empathy as a lever to be pulled, and the more you give in, the more they use it against you. So the next time it happens, pause, look at the situation for what it is. Ask yourself, are they truly hurt, or do they just want control? Are they expressing their feelings, or are they twisting mine? Because once you recognize the game, you take away their power. And the moment you stop carrying the guilt that was never yours to begin with, you set yourself free. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being next to someone who is supposed to care but doesn't. From sitting beside them, speaking, sharing, existing, only to realize they aren't really there. They nod, they respond, maybe they even smile, but their mind is somewhere else, their heart nowhere to be found. And you feel it, that hollow emptiness between you, that distance that shouldn't exist but does. You start to wonder if you're imagining it, if you're being too sensitive. But deep down, you know the truth. You are alone, even in their presence. And that is the loneliest feeling in the world. Because real connection isn't just about being physically close to someone. It's about presence. It's about feeling seen, heard, understood. When someone truly cares, they are there, fully, wholly. They don't just occupy space, they share it with you. They don't just listen to your words, they hear them. They don't just exist beside you, they exist with you. But some people, they never do. They are there, but not really. You talk, but they don't engage. You reach, but they never reach back. You could spill your soul at their feet, and they wouldn't even notice. And yet, they expect you to believe that they care. Caring isn't just saying the right things. It isn't just showing up when it's convenient. It's being present, truly present. And when someone fails to give you that, when their presence feels like absence, when you feel lonelier with them than you do without them, what does that tell you? It tells you they were never really there for you. Not in the way you needed, not in the way that mattered. And the worst part, you kept trying. You filled the silence, carried the weight of the conversations, made excuses for their distance. You thought if you just loved them enough, gave them enough time, explained yourself in the right way, they would finally see you. But they didn't. Because they never intended to. You cannot force someone to be present. You cannot beg someone to care in the way you deserve. And if you have to constantly fight to feel valued in someone's presence, then the battle was lost before it even began. So ask yourself this: how many times have you sat beside them feeling completely alone? Because the answer to that will tell you everything. The truth is, we all deserve more than just empty presence. We deserve people who show up for us, who value our time, our energy, and our worth. People who see us not just when it's convenient, but all the time. People who will stand by us, celebrate our success, and be genuinely there through the good and the bad. So, don't settle for less. Don't allow yourself to be treated as an afterthought, a convenience, or a temporary fixture in someone else's life. Recognize the signs, know your worth, and when you find yourself surrounded by those who truly care, hold on to them, nurture those relationships, and let go of the ones that drain you. Because you are worthy of the kind of love that shows up, the kind of friendship that doesn't need to be earned, the kind of connection that doesn't leave you questioning whether you matter. You deserve more than the silence, more than the indifference, more than the games. You deserve presence. You deserve real, unwavering care. And once you see your own value, you'll stop accepting anything less.